I'm a tiny taggart in a brave new world, gonna free this town. If you didn't know about me already, well, you know it now.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Objectivist Girl. And this week is
Objectivist Girl News.
This week, we're going to talk about Thai protesters, Google cars, the McDonald's protest, and of course, our famous Democrats versus Republicans. Who is dumber? So I hope you guys are ready to get started, because here we go. So this past week, we saw Thai protesters protesting against curfews, banning of certain public televisions, and of course, the implementation of martial law. So what was interesting and significant about this protest was their use of the Hunger Games symbol. So many of you have seen Hunger Games and love the movies, but not many of you know that it's actually a protest against tyrannical government. So the movies are actually made to inform people about tyrannical governments and how one should treat a tyrannical government. So you'll see Katniss's followers and fans do this, and that symbol is to symbolize the hope for freedom. And Katniss is their symbol of hope, and this is their signal to Katniss that they know that she's a symbol of hope. And so what's interesting about Hunger Games is that it's kind of done what Atlas Shrugged did when it first came out. It kind of ignited people and informed them, and we were hoping that the movies for Atlas Shrugged would do this exact same thing. It doesn't seem to have ignited the same flame, but Hunger Games seems to have done that, so I'm just happy that some movie is igniting flames. I wish it were the Atlas Shrugged movies, but it's nice that there is a movie that's igniting people. So the next thing we're going to talk about is Google cars. So Google's done it again, and we don't often get good news nowadays with the rise in taxes on businesses. But after the takeoff of Google Glasses, Google has been able to create an autonomous car. Yes, a self-driving car. So what's cool about this car is that it will probably change the way that we think about licensing, insurance, and all of those other sorts of things. But first of all, what's important is that the car right now can only do about 25 miles an hour, but that's pretty normal for a prototype. And it can't do highway speeds, but they're hoping to release about 100 prototypes in California to come up. But what I really wanted to talk to you about is the change in licensing and registration. So about 90% of car accidents are from human error, as estimated by the vehicle motor industry. And what's interesting is that they also say that after we see a large rise in prices from autonomous cars, we would then see about a 90% drop in premium existence. So more than likely 90% of people will not even pay premiums. What is also interesting is that if these cars work, we will be able to charge car companies instead of people. So the car companies will be held responsible for the car working properly, and we will see a rise in the quality of cars that we buy, and we'll also see a lowering of how much it costs to drive a car. So hopefully we can also get these cars to be powered by battery. Wouldn't that be great? So the next thing we're going to talk about is the McDonald's protest. So as many of you know, Obama's proposed a 10-10 minimum wage hike, but McDonald's protesters didn't see that as a good enough opportunity. They wanted to push for $15 an hour. So McDonald's protesters headed out at the annual McDonald's shareholder meeting, and there were about 2,000 of them, and 138 were arrested for trespassing. And these McDonald's shareholders are trying to fight for that $15 minimum wage. Now, many of you know that I am against minimum wage, and I want to go ahead and dispel the myth of minimum wage being a positive impact for communities. So here we go. First of all, I'm going to talk about this from a logical standpoint. Most of the US's poor are unemployed or at least underemployed. So it doesn't make sense to increase minimum wage when most of the people that are suffering from poverty are actually not even employed. So secondly, the other issue that I have with this is that this is going to end up resulting in a cut of hours. These businesses are not going to just absorb the cost that it would take in order to pay their workers $15 an hour. So they're going to lower the hours that workers are working. So it's going to end up evening out anyway. And also, this is going to cause many workers to be fired due to incompetency. There's going to be a raise in expectations for workers to perform at a higher rate because they're doing less hours. So there's going to be increased pressure on these workers in order to perform better than they were before because of the decrease in hours. But I think the most frustrating thing for me personally is the punishment of the businesses from the US. So the US is hiking up the printing of the dollar and inflating the dollar so it is pretty much worthless. And then they're putting the burden on businesses by having them pay the workers more because that inflated dollar isn't worth as much. So when you go to buy a house, say, you are going to have to spend more dollars than you did a few years ago on that house because of the inflation of the dollar, because it's worth less. And it is worthless, really. You should invest in Bitcoin. But I digress on my Bitcoin talk. But what if, think about it this way, what if I went to your business and spilled coffee and then expected you to pay for my coffee? Wouldn't you be irritated? That's how businesses should feel about the US making the dollar worthless and then taking it out on businesses and making them look like the enemy, when actually the enemy is the Federal Reserve. So that's why I have a problem with the minimum wage. Also, it's important to cover this from an ethical standpoint. From objectivist ethics, this is extremely immoral. It is theft. You are stealing money from more competent workers to give it to less competent workers. And these competent workers have earned it through their output and increase in value. If these other workers wanted to earn as much as the competent workers, they would become more competent at their job. It is about time and output. And these incompetent workers are not creating the same time and output that these competent workers are. So if you want further information about this, I would check out my video, Man is an Ends in and of himself. This is a great video to reference after pretty much all of my videos, but you can check this out at the link below. So guys, it's time for your absolute favorite segment of all. Who said the dumber thing? Republicans or Democrats? We really should just call them Demopubs and Republicrats. They're pretty much the same thing anyway. So Obama said some pretty dumb things about climate change in the last few days. Obama said, farmers see crops wilted one year, washed away the next, and the higher food prices get passed on to you, the American consumer. No, this is due to the subsidies that our government is still enforcing. So when government affects the output and cost of food, this is going to have a negative effect on people. So first of all, if they affect the cost of food, people are going to have to pay more for it and can't afford as much food, so people are going to starve. Second of all, if you control the supply of food, people aren't going to be able to buy as much food, and therefore people are going to starve. So, don't even get me started on the nutritional issues that all of this causes. So Obama, don't blame issues with harvest on the farmers. You need to be blaming this on your subsidies. I don't know what's dumber, the first thing that Obama said or the second thing Obama said. Americans across the country are already paying the price of inaction and insurance premiums, state and local taxes, and the cost of rebuilding and disaster relief. You mean because we legally can't ban the border restrictions and create competitive insurance costs across borders? No, I believe that that would be your issue. Because when we create more competition, prices become lower. This is a fact. Or do you mean the state and local taxes that government enforces on us? Because your theft is robbing us of our money. And whether you like to pretend that all of this gets back to the people, no, it doesn't, because it's got to go through the government and pay all the workers that handle that money. So don't talk about how much you hurt for the American people and their poverty when you're enforcing theft on these exact people. Oh wait, no, I got it now. Okay, I totally understand. You're talking about the disaster relief bailouts that you gave to Chicago. Chicago, as you'll see in one of my more recent videos, which I'll put a link to, Obama gave money for disaster relief to Chicago for their bailout. That money was bookmarked for disaster relief, and he just went and gave it to Chicago. Like, our money that we give to the government can just be used for whatever they decide to use it for. And Chicago has made many, many bad decisions about their economy, and still making bad decisions about their economy. But we're supposed to bail them out? No, I don't think so. So as irritating as the things Obama said, Boehner went out and said a few things that were extremely irritating as well. So we're going to cover the Republicans now. The Republican Speaker of the House, John Boehner, claimed the president's plan would indeed cause a surge in electricity bills. Costs stand to go up $17 billion every year, but it would also shut down plants and potentially put an average of 224,000 more people out of work every year. From this claim, the Ohio Republican earned a big fat false from PolitiFact. And I find this especially irritating because I'm from Ohio, and unfortunately, this is the person that represents my home state. So this proves that a little bit of research can really go a long way. Republicans have proved time and time again that they know nothing about climate change, and they dismiss it with a wave of their hand as leftist hocus pocus. Now, I'm not saying that what's being put out there is true, but what is true is that the Earth's climate is cyclical. It travels around the sun and gets closer and further away. The weather is changing, and it's always changing. Both groups are wrong. The Democrats are too extreme, and the Republicans are far too dismissive. But you may be asking at this point, what does this have to do with objectivism? Well, guys, objectively, you shouldn't vote for either of these idiots. So I hope you enjoyed another episode of Objectivist Girl News, and I hope that you'll join me again next week for my next video. And remember, guys, knowledge is not for all men, but for those who seek it, so keep seeking.